Good evening and welcome to tonight's American Rescue Plan Telephone Town Hall. My name is Adam Veal and I'm a Deputy Communications Director for Congresswoman McBath in her Sandy Springs District Office. We've convened this evening's conversation to talk about the historic COVID relief package that was signed into law by President Biden last week. Later this evening, we'll be joined by Fulton County Chairman Robb and Cobb County Chairwoman Cupid to share updates about their work at the county level. And to those of us joining us on the call, at any time during the event that you wish to ask a question, please press *3, and a member from our team will take your question. If you'd like to subscribe to the Congresswoman's official newsletter, please press *6, and a member of our team will get your email address so that you can stay updated with the Congresswoman's work in Washington and in the 6th District. Due to this evening's congressional schedule, the Congresswoman may need to briefly leave our event tonight in order to vote on the House floor. Thank you all once again for joining us, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Lucy McBath. Congresswoman?
Well, thank you so much, Adam, and good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us tonight. And before we begin this evening, I would really like to pause and honor the lives of the victims of this week's shootings in Atlanta and Cherokee County. And my heart remains very heavy for the families that have been affected by this horrific and hateful violence. And hate and discrimination have no place in our community or anywhere else in this nation. And my love and my prayers and support are with these families, friends, and communities of those that have been taken. And we've got to continue to do all that we can to root out all forms of racism, hatred, and bigotry. But I do want to thank all of you once again for joining me this evening for tonight's telephone town hall, which is focusing on the American Rescue Plan. I welcome yet another opportunity to connect with you and your families at a time when it's important that we continue observing the guidance of our public health experts by staying away from large in-person gatherings. These telephone town halls have been such a critical tool for me over the past year to remain engaged with you, to speak with you, and to hear directly from you about your concerns and your needs as I continue to represent you in Congress. I really miss being able to gather with all of you in person, but I know that by limiting our exposure and following the expert guidance of public health leaders and wearing our masks, we are doing our duty to protect the health and safety of our families, ourselves, and our neighbors. And these very simple but effective practices may very well help save a life. And I want to commend all of you who continue making sacrifices to protect our public health. Your actions really are making a difference in the fight against COVID-19. As I have said so often before, I want to offer my profound gratitude to our frontline medical personnel and support staff who still continue to put their lives on the line every day since the pandemic began. And we're enormously grateful for the service and sacrifices that you and your families have made to save lives, to save our lives. Finally, I want to give my condolences to those who have experienced the most painful elements of this pandemic. Whether you have lost your job, or you're struggling to keep your small business afloat, or you're grieving the loss of a family member or friend, please know that you are in my prayers this night and always. I pray over our district every single day. And I also want you to know that my top concern is always ensuring that you and your family have the resources, the support, and the federal assistance that you need to continue moving through this chapter of our history. Over the past week, my colleagues and I here in Washington have been paying very close attention to the rollout of the American Rescue Plan. And henceforward, I will reference this as ARP, the American Rescue Plan, which President Biden signed into law last week. And as the president said when he signed that historic piece of legislation, he said help is on the way. And help is on the way. And I've been very pleased to hear from constituents over and over again as they begin to feel the impact of this very critical package. This plan helps deliver life-saving vaccines. It invests in our schools so that our children and our teachers can safely return to in-person learning, and provides immediate relief and stimulus checks to those who need them the most. And I was very proud to cast my vote to deliver support to all of our friends and neighbors. And I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge the people of Georgia's role in making such a bold, ambitious plan possible in the first place. The ARP included my bill, H.R. 942, which is the Pandemic Healthcare Improvement Act. This legislation that I introduced with my colleague, Representative Linda Sanchez. And this bill basically expands the Affordable Care Act exchange premium tax benefits to individuals who are on unemployment insurance this year. The ARP plan also provides an additional direct payment of $1,400 per person to working families. And as of yesterday, the Internal Revenue Service, the United States Department of the Treasury, and also the Bureau of the Fiscal Service announced that they've already dispersed approximately 90 million economic impact payments from the ARP, with millions more to be dispersed within the coming weeks. The plan expands the child tax credit to $3,600 per child under the age of 6 to help alleviate the impacts of poverty for nearly 27 million American children. And it's projected that this now fully refundable credit will cut child poverty in America by half. Truly, that is such remarkable news. And right now, it's estimated that 1 in 6 American children are actually living in poverty. And it's so important that we do all that we can to ensure that our youngest Americans, as we often say, the youngest and most vulnerable, have food in their stomachs and a roof over their head. The plan also increases the Paycheck Protection Program funding, and it expands eligibility for 501c nonprofits. And I know that was something that many constituents and businesses called over and over again, called our office about. We made absolutely sure that we are protecting our 501c nonprofits. And it supports veterans and service members by ensuring veterans do not have copays or cost sharing for preventive treatment or services that are related to COVID-19 within the last year. It provides nearly $130 billion to help K-12 schools safely reopen and return to in-person learning. It extends unemployment benefits that were set to expire earlier this week. It expands health coverage and makes health care more affordable for the American people. It also provides $27.5 billion in emergency rental assistance. Perhaps what you might find most critical is that the plan establishes a national COVID-19 vaccination program and scales up testing, contact tracing, and mitigation to contain the virus. Getting enough of the American people vaccinated is our ticket. This is our way out of this pandemic. And I'm so encouraged by the rapid progress that we've seen in getting shots in the arms of those who are currently eligible to receive the vaccine. As we continue to work on getting more shots in arms, I want to again voice my strong support for the work that is being done on the ground by medical personnel and volunteer staff to get Georgians vaccinated. And I want to thank leaders across our community for doing their part to educate and inform their friends and neighbors about the safety and the efficacy of the now 3 approved vaccines that people are able to receive. The development of a COVID-19 vaccine was nothing short of miraculous. And now it's up to our federal, state, and private partners to rise to the occasion and continue ramping up our vaccination numbers. We've made incredible progress as a nation. Actually, more than 1 in 5 American adults have received their first shot, and 15% of adults in America are now fully vaccinated. I'm pretty disappointed to see Georgia so low in the statewide vaccination totals, but I believe that the American Rescue Plan, the ARP, will only help us improve those totals and continue to deliver shots to those who want to be vaccinated. And we've got to strive to make this vaccine available to all who want it, and we've got to strive to make it available to them as quickly as we can. And I'm encouraged by President Biden's statement that that might be possible by the beginning of May. I want people listening to this evening's conversation to know that I myself have been vaccinated. The shots were very quick and very painless, and I did not suffer any severe side effects. COVID-19 vaccines are safe, they're effective, and will help us get back to normal once enough Americans are vaccinated and we can safely resume activities, which I know we have all sorely missed in the last year. I strongly encourage all who are eligible to sign up, make your vaccine appointment, and please get your shot. Tonight, I welcome the opportunity to answer questions, hear your concerns, and engage in a dialogue with you, my constituents, to talk about this historic legislative package, the American Rescue Plan. At any time during this evening's conversation, if you have a question, just please, press *3. If you'd like to subscribe to my Congressional newsletter, just press *6. This evening, I'm also pleased to be joined by Fulton County Chairman Robb Pitts. Chairman Pitts has served as chairman of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners since 2017, and I'm delighted to have him join us this evening. Chairman Pitts, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me and share a little bit about the work that you're doing on the ground in Fulton County as you continue to help us get through COVID-19 pandemic and on the road to recovery. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, Congresswoman, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I think fondly about the time that we spent together when you were first running. So we're so very proud of you here in Fulton County. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to just echo your thoughts, your sentiments with respect to the tragedy that has occurred with in our Asian community. That has to end. And the second point that I'd like to make, I have received both of my shots, pain-free, painless, quick, and easy. So I, too, am encouraging everyone in the sound of my voice who has not been tested to pursue the vaccination, to please do so. It is a matter of life or death in many cases. Now, here in Fulton County, I am very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. It is a fact, based upon the statistics that we're seeing, that Georgia as a state, though, is at the bottom. But Fulton County, proudly to say, we're at the top. We represent only 10% of the population of the state of Georgia, but we are responsible for and have been responsible for approximately 25% of the testing that has been done throughout the state of Georgia, as well as approaching that same number with respect to the vaccination. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing. We have 3 locations within Fulton County, one in North County, one in the center of the county, and one on the southern part of our county. And the one that we're really proud of, which has been something that's very creative for us, we're one of the first, if not the first, local government to partner with our sports teams. As you recall, during the elections last year, we were working with State Farm Arena, which is the home of the Atlanta Hawks. We later cut a deal and worked with and partnered with the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta United, utilizing Mercedes-Benz Stadium for voting. And we also used both, and are using both, at that one point using both for testing and vaccinations as well. The other huge site that we have in the county is near the headquarters of Delta Airlines at their museum, and you're very familiar with that in your past life. We're using that, and the benefit in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the site that is housed at the Delta Museum, those are two that are located on the south side of our county. And that's important because of the health inequity issue that probably every jurisdiction within the United States is facing, meaning that people of color, black, brown, Asian, Native Americans, etc., are more susceptible to the problem, but in many cases are less likely to get tested and, of course, to get the vaccine as well. So by making it easier for them to be tested and making it easier for them to have access to the vaccine, we're making a huge dent in getting that population, that part of our community protected. So we're very, very proud of that, and the governor has applauded us for what we're doing here. In fact, other jurisdictions throughout the country are calling us and wanting to duplicate what we're doing here. So again, in conclusion, I'm really proud of what we're doing here in Georgia. Money that's coming to us, sorely needed. One other point, the emergency rental assistance money that we received, Fulton County received $18 million, and believe it or not, we've had requests for in excess of $44 million, although we only have $18 million to go around. So there's a huge need there for additional rental assistance. And going forward, the new money that we will be receiving, $206.3 million, we're very in need of that, very proud to have received that. Now, that is money that will come directly to Fulton County. There are, for those who may not know, there are 15 cities within Fulton County, the largest being Atlanta. Atlanta will receive its own allocation, and each of the other cities within the county will receive their allocation. But the direct allocation to Fulton County is $206.3 million. And we've been working very diligently to figure out how we can best utilize that money to get it to where it needs to be. And we developed three sort of buckets, if you will. A portion of it will be used for what we call health response. Second bucket will be used for what we call operational stability. And the third bucket will be used for what we call community needs. So this is money that will go directly to the people and benefit the people of Fulton County. And thank you, Congresswoman, for your support of getting every penny that we've gotten so far. And we just cannot thank you enough. We know that you're there for fighting for us.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Pitts. I really appreciate you taking the time to really explain to everyone, the allocation of the funds so that everyone knows that, money is coming directly to our district. And as the president says, help is on the way. This evening, we're also joined by Cobb County Chairwoman Lisa Cupid. Chairwoman Cupid has recently become the first African American and first woman to serve in her position on the Board of Commissioners. And I'm so delighted to have her join us this evening to share her perspective on the COVID-19 pandemic recovery in Cobb County and how the American Rescue Plan will keep us on the road to a much brighter future. Chairwoman Cupid, thank you so much for being with us this evening, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you, Congressman McBath, for the invitation to be here tonight. Thank you, Chairman Pitts, for your continued leadership for the region, not just Fulton County. And again, thank you, all of you, for tuning in. I, too, join them in expressing condolences to the families who have recently lost someone in the senseless shooting that we had here in Atlanta. In Cobb, we are grateful for the federal relief we have received. Responding and recovering from the pandemic is our top priority, as it is for many of you. And we know that many of you have struggled and continue to struggle to stay healthy to socially distance, to take care of your children, to keep your businesses afloat, and to have some sense of normalcy in pretty abnormal times. This is why we are absolutely grateful in Cobb for the federal funding we have received. With the monies we've received thus far, we've been able to set up mobile testing sites, tackle vaccine distribution, significantly help small businesses, purchase PPE, support public health, feed families, and help keep a roof over their heads. Most recently, we've been able to dedicate resources to establish a call center to help us address the inequity that has resulted due to vaccine testing availability being made primarily online. Now, tonight you've heard the Congresswoman speak about the benefits that will be augmented for so many Americans with this relief program. And I know that it will continue for Cobb County residents. And we will get through this together as we determine how we will continue to serve our residents through this additional funding. Certainly in Cobb, we are grateful for the support that it can provide in responding to families and keeping our government running as we continue to support all of our stakeholders here who have invested in Cobb County. I know with all of us working together again that we will get through this and continue to move our county, our communities, and our country forward. Thank you again for your time this evening, and once again, thank you, Congresswoman McBath.
Well, thank you so much, Chairwoman Cupid, and thank you so much for your insight and, all just the great investment that you've made. Thank you so much, all the great investment that you've made in Cobb County. And now I believe that we have several audience questions. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press *3.
Thank you, Congresswoman. As a reminder to our audience, if you would like to ask a question, please press *3. And if you would like to subscribe to the Congresswoman's Congressional newsletter, please press *6. Our first question comes from online. Our question is from Marianne from Tucker. Marianne asks, how does this bill help me and my family get vaccinated sooner?
Well, thank you, Marianne, for that question. Getting the American people vaccinated, as I've said, is the quickest and the safest way that the American people can really end this pandemic. And I think that we've been able to see that the more numbers of people that are following the CDC guidelines with washing their hands and masking and social distancing, and now people are getting the vaccination, we're beginning to see the percentages and the people that are actually getting COVID go down. We know that the American Rescue Plan really helps us to accelerate our ability to get these life-saving shots into the arms of all the American people by just mounting a national vaccination effort that just completely utilizes a whole government organic approach and help us to tackle the pandemic together. And so, this bill also really helps protect the public health in so many other ways, including, investing in testing and tracing and getting personal protective equipment to the areas that may be experiencing shortages. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing right now, that the ARP is doing, because we really want to get the country back on track, and we want people to be able to live normal lives again.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question comes from Andre in Milton, Georgia. This is a live question. Andre has a question about gun violence prevention. Andre, you are live, and you can ask your question now.
Hi, Congressman McBath. Thank you for taking my question. I'm very proud of your service in Washington, your representation there on behalf of the 6th District where I live. I live here in Milton, Georgia right now, but I grew up in El Paso, Texas, where in 2019 there was an unfortunate gun massacre where 23 Latinos were murdered. I actually grew up very close to the mall where that massacre occurred, and I actually worked there many years ago, so that was very personal to me. Fast forward to today, and we just recently had this another gun violence here in Atlanta, as everybody's talked about, related to the Asian Americans, and it's another example of how we desperately need gun control, in my opinion. So could you enlighten me, let me know what, now that we have a Democratic-controlled Congress and Senate and President, what initiatives do you think you'll be taking to help implement some common sense gun control? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. And of course, just even the most recent tragedy that we've had here in Atlanta just really continues to amplify the need to make sure that we're enacting safer gun safety legislation. My goal is to make sure that my colleagues and I here in Washington work as hard as we really can to make sure that we're saving as many lives as possible. And, my work in the halls of Congress is deeply rooted in the work to prevent these heartbreaking deaths, like, the one that actually ripped through my own family, and of course the one that just ripped through our community here in Georgia. As you know, one of the bills that we were able to pass last week was H.R. 8, which is the Bipartisan Background Checks Act, and then also closing the Charleston loophole, which is the enhanced background check. And so those are pieces of legislation that, over 90% of the American public, law-abiding gun owners and hunters and, survivors and victims have over and over again said that they support these two pieces of legislation that will save the largest numbers of lives. And, it's just common sense legislation that's going to prevent more families from knowing the pain of losing a loved one to gun violence. And no one should ever lose anyone that they love that way. But there again, we know that the gun culture is expansive. It is large, and it will take many pieces of policy, not just those two pieces of legislation, but many pieces of legislation for years to come to really curb the extent of the gun violence that we see. I do know that President Biden is committed to creating a safer climate. Actually, I will tell you that I'm a vice chair of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force here in Washington in Congress, and actually we will be speaking with the White House tomorrow, having discussions with Susan Rice, having discussions as to what gun violence prevention and what policy-oriented solutions we will be putting in place together to organically and holistically really tackle gun violence in the United States. So we are actively working on the front lines, but there again, we're also tying into the grassroots organizations that have been on the ground, survivors, gun violence victims, the gun violence prevention organizations that have been doing really, really good work on the front line. We will be tying into those organizations and individuals as well to make sure that we are really attacking gun violence as a public health crisis that it is. So we'll continue to, work on gun safety. I myself have other pieces of legislation that I'll be putting forth, Federal Extreme Risk Protection Order. And there's just, there's not just one piece of legislation that will be able to tackle, the enormity of the gun violence that we have in our country. So we'll continue to champion saving lives, keeping people safe is my number one priority. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question comes from Patrick from Woodstock. Patrick has a question about oversight of spending in the American Rescue Plan. Patrick, you are live with the Congresswoman, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. This goes back to, I think, I mentioned this a couple of calls ago about what happens when and if there is money, who controls it. Same with the vaccines. I was very concerned about who was controlling the rollout, and now we see the results of the rollout are not so good. I'm an essential worker. My wife is a teacher. As a teacher, she just got the ability to do this, which I think just shows the lack of planning, the lack of detail, lack of really understanding who really needs to get vaccinated, when and where. Very disappointed in the rollout of the program. And I'm hoping that this rescue plan fixes some of those holes. But my main concern here, again, is that if the governor has control of funding, like I'm looking back to the mortgage crisis when they gave Governor Deal the money and he didn't use it to help people, he used it to help banks. So I want to make sure that the same sort of thing doesn't happen again, where we just got money released, worked really hard. You guys worked really hard to get this done, and the money is squandered on things that really, as I've seen, and some governors in other states have tried to wrestle it for things that really don't help on the ground. So I want to know what's in this thing. What did you guys put in here that really helps kind of connect the citizens with the funding?
Thank you, Patrick, so much for that question. Actually within the bill itself, we provided money to the Office of the Inspector General that kind of ensures that oversight is provided with respect to many of the health and social services funds. And we want to make sure that that money is appropriated in that way. And over the last year, we've really been taking note of the deficiencies and watching where, not where the money goes, but actually where the money goes, how it's spent, and making sure that we're tracing and tracking what happens. So over the last year, as we've continued to provide relief to the American people, Congress created the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, and that's actually led by Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. And this committee is committed really to ensuring that the legislation is implemented effectively and equitably. And actually, we have been able to ascertain a number of instances where large sums of money, appropriated funding, went to organizations and entities that in all fairness should not have received those funds. And so we've been making them accountable to returning the funding so that we can allocate those resources to the American people that really need the services and the funds. And then also, we have to continue to make sure that this money is going to go to those who need it most. And so I know that I'm going to continue to work with my colleagues in Congress to provide oversight of, these really very important and critical provisions, but that are in this bill. But I want to assure you that there is a great deal of oversight. I have to say, we're trying to close the loopholes and make sure that the monies are appropriated where they need to be and to whom they need to go to, and we're tracing and tracking every dime. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next question is an online submission. Danny from Sandy Springs wants to know, how does the current stimulus bill that the president just signed impact or benefit restaurants?
Well, thank you, Danny. Of course, small businesses, as I have always said, are the backbone of our community. And that is how we continue to be a thriving local economy. And that is a huge concern for our office, and wanting to make sure that our business community gets back up on its feet again. And it's no secret that local businesses have been hit the hardest by this pandemic, and many of our restaurants and hardworking entrepreneurs, if you are one, have struggled just so hard to try to survive. And that's why the American Rescue Plan, we've appropriated $28.6 billion and grants for small local restaurants that have been hit the hardest. And it's the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that actually provides this grant funding, and that grant funding goes to our local restaurants because you still, are in desperate need of our relief. So I can assure you that we're doing all that we can, and I will do all that I can to support our local restaurants and businesses and just continue to support the working families that just really keep our community strong. But I do want you to know that getting our business community back up on its feet again is a big priority for us in the 117th Congress and specifically to our office, and we'll do everything that we can to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We've got another live question. This question comes from Mary. Mary has a question about eligibility for stimulus payments. Mary, you are live with the Congresswoman. You can go ahead and ask your question. Mary, you can go ahead and ask your question now.
Yes. Am I live?
Yes, you can go ahead, Mary.
Okay. I thought they did a recording of it. I'm sorry. Thank you, Congresswoman McBath. My question pertains to this most recent bill that was signed last week and the stimulus that will be available. If income on 2019 taxes exceeded the threshold, but 2020 income, but the tax return hasn't been filed yet, was under the threshold, will a check be forthcoming at some point in the future?
Thank you for that question so much, Mary. And as I've said over and over again, I know that this pandemic has caused grief and mourning for so many people across our community, and it's just devastated the lives and livelihoods of, so many Americans. And first, I really want to express my sympathy to everybody here. And I know that the stimulus payments are so valuable for so many of you, and, not only within our district, but, across Georgia. The American Rescue Plan actually provides $1,400 to eligible adults, and you'll be able to receive your payments in the most recent round of the economic impact payments if you file your taxes and qualify with your 2020 tax returns. So I hope that helps answer the question for you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We've got another live question. This is from Bill from Sandy Springs. Has a question about where the money from the American Rescue Plan is going to be distributed locally. So, Bill, you are live with the Congresswoman, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Well, thank you, Bill. I'm actually kind of excited to tell you, about how the money is going to be spread about, and I'm really excited about, the allocation here to us. One of the biggest things that I know that we're facing right now is getting our kids back to school, and we want to do so as quickly and safely as we possibly can. This bill actually provides $700 million for K-12 schools in Cobb and Fulton and DeKalb counties, so that they'll have more resources. We'll be able to do testing and vaccination plans so that our kids can get back to in-person learning. Of course, because we know our teachers and staff are also eager to get back. The bill also appropriates about $600 million to counties in the 6th district alone, as well as many of the cities. And this will actually give local governments the speed and the flexibility that they need to be able to provide funding for services, for those that need it most. So I'm really excited about those numbers from what we're hearing from our mayors and city council, that, everyone's really excited about those numbers because it will actually help provide all the services and support that we need to get back up on our feet. But, we still got to continue to do all that we can to provide as much money to accelerate the vaccinations for our families. And we still need to get money into the pockets of those who need it the most. And, we've got to work to get our kids back into school. And we've got to provide funding for our small businesses who are just, as I said before, always in our mind, truly the backbone of our local economy. So I'm happy to give those numbers, and, our Commissioner Cupid and also, Mr. Pitts were able to give us good ideas of where those monies are allocated as well. So I'm really happy to report that. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We've got another question from online. This question comes from Julia in Johns Creek. Julia asks, with all of the anti-Asian hate and after the murders of 8 innocent victims, what are we doing to help stop it?
Thank you so much, Julia. And, thank you for this question. And, as I said before, this is horrific and just hateful violence. And I understand what that is like. I can honestly say, I sympathize, but I truly empathize because I've experienced that myself. And as I've said before, racism and bigotry and discrimination, they have no place in our community, and they have no place across the country. Just today, though, I have signed on to the COVID-19, it's called the Hate Crimes Act of 2021. And that will actually require the Attorney General to issue guidance to mitigate any discriminatory language, as well as ensure that, all hate crimes are reported to all of the relevant law enforcement agencies. We've got to work hard to do our part to help stop all these forms of gun violence in our country, hate crimes, hate speech, discrimination, and bigotry. And I'll continue to fight as hard as I possibly can to keep people in our community and across the country healthy and safe.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for that answer. Unfortunately, you are being called to the House floor to vote. We are out of time for Q&A, but thank you, everyone, for your really thoughtful questions. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please don't hesitate to reach out to our district office by calling 470-773-6330. And before you have to go vote, Congresswoman, I do want to hand it back over to you for some closing remarks before you have to head to the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Adam. Everyone, thank you so much. I'm so sorry I have to run, but thank you so much for your time and your really insightful questions. And I just want to thank you all so much for lending your ears and your voice to our dialogue tonight. And to all those joining us tonight, I hope that you found our conversation pretty informative and engaging. I was really excited to be able to bring our guests to you and also all this really great information. And it's my goal to continue to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. So once again, if you didn't get a question in today, this evening, or you discovered that you have a question at a later time, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. My dedicated team is always standing by. We're always ready to answer any of your questions about any of the topics that we've touched upon today, or any other topics that you have about another federal issue. Additionally, if you require casework assistance with any federal agency, please call or email my office. And as I've always said, we are here to serve you. I am going to run now. I'm going to say very quickly our telephone number for the Sandy Springs District Office is 470-773-6330. And our email is casework.macbath@mail.house.gov. Again, that phone number is 470-773-6330. And the email is casework.macbath@mail.house.gov. Thank you again so much for your engagement with my office. Hope we were able to answer your questions. And as always, it's such an honor and a privilege to me to be able to represent you in Congress. In weeks to come, I really hope that all of you remain healthy and safe, and I'll do everything that I can to always work on your behalf and champion for you here in Washington. Good night.
Thank you all once again for joining us this evening. Thank you, Congresswoman McBath. Please continue to stay safe and healthy, get vaccinated when you're able to do so, and have a wonderful night.